Hola, hola, hola! Today I'm going to be recapping the latest episode of Drag Race España Season 5, Vais a Volverme Lorca, or You're Driving Me Lorca. I have a lot to say, so without further ado, let's get into it. The queens walk back into the workroom after Crystal's elimination, and the consensus is that the room feels a lot lighter since she left. Denebola says she's coming out strong, she's not landing in the bottom again. I hate it here. So it's a new week in the competition, and there are 8 queens left. Alexandra calls herself a lip sync assassin despite only lip syncing once so far. Foreshadowing, eat your heart out. Nyx says she feels like the weakest contestant that's left, and this is an ongoing storyline in this episode. In fact, it's one of my favourite storylines this season. At that moment, Supreme enters the workroom and announces that for this week's mini challenge, the queens will be using products from Crash Cosmetics. They can only use one makeup item to beat their full face. The win ends up going to Daphne, and I agree, her eyebrows looked amazing. So for this week's Maxi Challenge, the queens will be starring in a musical titled Vais a Volverme Lorca. Lorca was a Spanish playwright who passed away in 1936. As the winner of the mini challenge, Daphne gets to assign the roles. She gives Nyx the role of Poncia, believing she will stuff it up. She says it's her time to go. Ouch. Let's not forget, Nyx did well in the last acting challenge. And at that point, I was really hoping she would prove everyone wrong, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I will say, I did think Ferran and Daphne were a little bit mean in this episode. They were taking joy in Nyx stumbling in the choreography, and they really wanted to get her out. I mean, we just got rid of Crystal. What's this? On Elimination Day, Alexandra and Satin Greco swapped stories about growing up with family members that had drug addictions, and how that turned into their own self-destructive habits. Drag saved their lives and became their therapy. Margarita says she is the director of Drag Storytime, and explains how important it is to be role models to future generations despite some parents' ignorance. So on the main stage this evening, we have Supreme Deluxe looking like a very exuberant funeral attendee. I like it more without the crazy headpiece on top. This is really beautiful. I just love the turban. We also have Anna Locking, Los Harveys, and extra special guest judge Ladani. And he looks a little bit like Javier Calvo. I almost got them mixed up. So it's time for You're Driving Me Lorca, and this was a great musical. The story was entertaining and all of the songs were bops. This is one of my favorite musicals that España has done. And I didn't even know who Lorca was before this episode. The standouts for me were Margarita Califata. She had a lot of lines to deliver, and deliver them she did. I thought Nyx was wonderful. She had such a big role, and she gave it everything she had. Satin was hilarious as the grandmother. She is so natural on the stage. I definitely think Denebola struggled the most in the performance and in the look. I thought the blue wig was cute, but it didn't really match what everyone else was wearing. Category is Blood Weddings, and I gave my top 2 to Ferran. I love this homage to Count Dracula. She said in her overview that this is one of her best looks, and I agree. And so it's time for the judges' critiques. Margarita and Daphne are made safe, meaning the rest of the tops and bottoms of the week. And honestly, I was really surprised Margarita was safe. She was such a standout for me. First up, we have Alexandra. They say she was missing elements to her role, and it was quite chaotic. However, her look fit the brief perfectly. Anna calls it art. Satin is in the top for stealing the show. I mean, that's my diva. I really do think Satin is going to win España 5. No one is getting more of a winner's edit than her. Ladani becomes emotional, saying he's been a fan of her for years, even growing up watching her perform. He says she's a dream come true and an inspiration. And this outfit was stunning. As expected, Denebola is in the bottom for not capturing the essence of her role. She needed more pain and bitterness in her character. They loved her look though, and how different it was to everyone else's. We know Denebola can always deliver on the runway. Nyx is told that her role was incredibly difficult. The judges say she turned it into something magical. And honestly, I cried at this point because Nyx had everything against her in this episode, and she came through. I love an underdog story. What Daphne was hoping for backfired. She was captivating, electrifying, and incredible. The judges tell Laka they want to see her get messy. She needs to move away from being so precise. She is asked if she wanted the role, and she repeats what she said earlier in the episode, that she should have stood her ground more. There was just something missing in her performance. They also say her runway was more historical than wedding, but it was beautiful. Ferran is in the top for interpreting her character perfectly. She is told she's a 10 out of 10 performer, and her look gets an over. Ferran gets emotional, saying that her drag mother made it for her. In Untucked, Daphne has to eat her words, knowing her plan for Nyx to flop backfired. Denebola cries, saying that she gets her confidence from her drag persona, but it just didn't work for the judges this time. The queens try to gauge who Crystal left her piece of heart to, which is fair considering she fought with most of the cast. Back on the main stage, Nyx wins the Rusical. Yes! That's how you show everyone you are not the weakest contestant in the cast. I'm so proud of Nyx. Truly, España 5 just keeps delivering with the storylines. Crystal Forever reveals that she left her piece of heart to Satin Greco. As Satin had already used a full heart to save Ferran at the beginning of the season, she couldn't save anyone this time around. This puts the responsibility back on the judges, and they decide to save Laca Odilia. This leaves Alexandra and Donebola to lip-sync it out. They perform to Yo Tengo un Novio by Lola Indigo. Alexandra gives it the fire it deserves. She performed this like she does it 7 days a week. Donebola put up a decent fight, but she was no match for Alexandra. Sure enough, Alexandra gets to stay and we say goodbye to Donebola. And I was so sad. Losing her and Sally within a matter of days was too much for me. She was my winner pick pre-season, but sadly the super creative arty queens just don't tend to make it to the end. I'm just happy that we had her as long as we did, getting to see one of the best drag race packages in history. And so, my friends, what did you think of this week's episode? I loved it. This season is top tier drag race. Next week looks to be a comedy/acting challenge. It wasn't overly clear in the preview, but either way, give me all the tea, and I'll see you very soon for another video.